We just got back from Texas. We were down there, my family, Annette and I, and the kids, went down to visit our families. Annette's folks are down there. My mom and my brother, my sister and her family all live in the San Antonio, Austin area. And so we went down there for 10, 11 days and spent some time in each one of those places, got back to Fredericksburg and Kerrville, visited some old friends. And we then, after that, got to go down to Corpus Christi and the beach for a while, which was just amazing. Although when we left, it was 106. So I was very glad to get back to the Chamber of Commerce, Cedar Rapids weather, nice cool mornings. It was awesome. But, we have been here just over a year now. And one of the amazing things about being here a year is now pretty much I have cycled through all of the big events at St. Mark's. And last year, when we were considering the call and then actually took the call to come up here, we really had very little idea of what we were getting into. And this is you got to understand Texas a little bit. This is a typical Texas thing to say. We'd say, hey, we're going to Iowa. And they would say, Iowa? What's in Iowa? And we would say, I was able to share, interviewed up at St. Mark's. It looks like a fabulous place. And I would give all of the great descriptive things that I could hope for at St. Mark's, because I really, other than the call committee and staff and a few others, I really didn't have much to go on. Well, this year when we went back, nobody said, Iowa. What they said was, well, we hear that you really like it there. We hear that you really like St. Mark's. And this time I was able to say, oh, yeah, from experience. The people, the passion for the gospel, the heart for ministry here. I remember I was going on about the high school youth going out and doing Party in the Park and how amazing that was. And they were like, really? They did that? Yeah, it was just awesome. And, and I will say that several occasions, it wasn't just once, several occasions people said, okay, we got it. You can stop now. Okay, good. So now, when we came last year, beginning of August, I hit the ground running in terms of getting things geared up. We were just going to start Crossways and all these other things, and I thought, okay, this year, I've been working up all summer, and I thought, okay, be a little more relaxed the week I get back. No, we're getting ready to start this amazing program, this journey together called The Story, and I've been kind of taking the lead on this year, and it has been a fabulous journey this summer. But I got back, and it was hit the ground running and get going and go. But I look at these next weeks, and I think, Rally Day's coming. And I think about the experience my kids have had here. And I can hardly wait to see it again. To see the excitement, to see the passion, to have Sven and Dean up here doing their thing, to have all of the music, to see the teachers coming together to teach these young people. And then, and I will say, one of the most overwhelming things last year was going to that first night of confirmation and seeing 175 middle school youth gathered together and thinking, wow. But I'm excited this year to see all those guides come together, all those adults that will be leading those groups, because I got to see both of my kids go through that. I got to see them grow through the influence of those men and women and through the presentations, all those things. And then Mission Sunday is the one thing I haven't been through yet, because you had it before I came, and now it's coming up. So that I'm excited about. And then on the 15th, this big day. And I share all of this because we have a rare and unique opportunity to go through this year. We had not really heard about the story until last year at some point, for the most part on the staff. Lutheran Church of Hope did it last year. And as we started talking to them and as we started investigating, we realized, well, a lot of Lutheran churches have done this. And the words that we kept coming back were all praise. Said people really grew. They really, even people who had been in the Bible all their lives, they really grew. People that had no understanding of the Bible and the flow of God's passionate story and love for us, they got it. And they grew. Whether it was through studying with small groups or just doing it on their own or with a couple of friends, they grew. And that's what excites me the most, is that we get to journey through God's Word together. And this is not an infomercial for, all right, now go out and buy, Carol's up here, but she'll be out there after services, and we want you to buy a story. Yeah, do that. But we've been walking through the Sermon on the Mount all summer. And it can be very easy to look at the Sermon on the Mount, all these teachings of Jesus, and think to yourself, well, it's a bunch of good rules. Good guidelines for life. In fact, a lot of people look at the Bible and say, good rules for life, I got it. I get that. Treat people fairly, don't take advantage. Care for other people, take care of the poor, period. But what we see in the Sermon on the Mount is Jesus, if we look closely, and as we have this summer, what we see is Jesus really outlines the impossible. It's impossible to do everything in the Sermon on the Mount on your own. You just can't do it. And as though to drive this point home, Jesus shares these stunning words from Matthew chapter 7. Do we got those up there yet? Let's go ahead and put those up so people can see. He says, "Enter through the narrow gate, for wide is the gate and broad is the road that leads to destruction, and many enter through it. But small is the gate and narrow the road that leads to life, and only a few find it." When Jesus shares this, it's at the close of the sermon. We're almost to the end. We got 2 more weeks after this. But each one of these weeks is Jesus drives this point home. You can't do it on your own. There's a lot of people out there on the path. In fact, if you try to do it on your own, you're basically just on the wide path, because that's the only one you can get to on your own. Even if you're thinking, I'm following these basic guidelines of treating people fairly and caring for those in need, you're still on the wide path. Jesus says, narrow path. Narrow path. That's the one that leads to life. This shows us that path to life. It's not the Sermon on the Mount does it. This whole book shows us that path to life. One of my favorite quotes is about those rules. A lot of people think about rules and they think, okay, well, rules are good. And it goes like this: unrestricted water is a swamp. Because it lacks boundaries, it also lacks depth. Okay? It's good stuff. And you know that if you have, for your own life, you know that you need boundaries, and if you go outside those boundaries, you get in trouble. And not because somebody's pulling you over on the side of the road with little lights going, but whether it's especially in relationships, if you're constantly crossing boundaries, it doesn't happen. For parents, you know this is true about your kids. You put boundaries there so that they'll grow deep. This is a basic truth. You don't have to be Christian to get this. But Jesus is saying, yeah, that's true, but there's more. In fact, there's a purpose here. You see, we're meant to go through this narrow road and through this gate, this small gate, because there's a purpose in our lives. There's a purpose, and that purpose leads to life. I had the pleasure to go backpacking a number of times up in Colorado, and it's been several years ago, but we went up north of Estes Park on a 6-day trip, and about day 3, and I will tell you, coming from Texas is about the same as coming from Iowa and going up to 12,000 feet. After a few days, you get there, but so we're up there 3 days in, beautiful scenery, and this day we were at the highest point. We were hiking about 11,000. We took some summits and so on, but this we actually had our full backpacks and going, and we came up to this alpine meadow. It's basically tundra. At that elevation, it's basically like Alaskan tundra, and there were 8 of us in our group, and that whole area out there was covered in very fragile vegetation, but we're still supposed to walk across it. There is not a trail marker anywhere, but we had our 2 guides, and all of us started across. We couldn't go in single file because one person walking behind the other would damage. There would be too much damage. But there was not a mule deer trail, nothing up there to follow. So we said, okay. So we walked across this prairie, and we walked about an hour until we got all the way to the other side of the mountain. It's still up there. And then the guide said, okay, we're heading back into the tree line. And all of us looked at each other and were like, how do you know that? I mean, where's it? There's not a sign. There's not a mound of rocks. There's nothing. And so we followed them. We got to the edge, and there were a few stubby little trees and a few more, and there's still no path. But our guides are taking us down. And then we get a little further, and then as the trees get a little thicker, we see it. There's a dirt path. And they guide us. There is no way that we could have seen this had they not shown us the way. And that's exactly what they did. So we walk down. We walk down this path, and we're, of course, at this point, because the trees are getting thicker, we are single file and going, and we get down, and we hike most of the day through all of this, and then we get to where there's a clearing, and we look out, and there's this most beautiful alpine lake, and they say, okay, we've arrived. Just 2 more hours of hiking, and we'll camp down there by that lake. But we had to rely on the guide. And that's exactly what Jesus says to us, or does for us. There is no way that you can look out there and follow a bunch of rules, even if you find them in the Bible, and find the path to life. What Jesus does is he takes you by the hand and says, trust me, I'll get you there. It's funny to hear these camp counselors, the guides, talk. They say, you know who the worst people are in these groups? They're always the pastors. Because we'll be up here, and they give me for instance, we'll be up here going, and they'll say, and we'll be following us, except for the pastor. The pastor will say, oh, no, we're supposed to go that way. And they'll say, no, really, we're supposed to go this way. No, I know we're supposed to go this way. And they'll say, well, how do you know this? Well, I was here 5 years ago. And of course the pastor didn't know which way to go. And that's often how we go. We think, okay, no, Jesus, I know that this is the right path. And Jesus said, no, trust me. Follow me, and I will show you the way. There is no other way. The path that Jesus is talking about to true life and happiness, to joy and to peace, is not paved with money. It's not paved with power. It's not paved with personal success. It's paved with the wood of the cross and covered in the blood of Jesus. So no one can step onto that path except that Jesus lead them down it. Some of you may feel very alone. You may be kind of just trying to do what Jesus says. You know that you want to have a relationship, and you may feel that you've been left behind. But what Jesus is sharing in the Sermon on the Mount, what Jesus is sharing throughout this book, what God shares with you is that God will take you by the hand. Trust him. He will lead you down that path to life. One of the things that happens is some of you have been on that path for a long time, and then you wander off the trail. The first thing that we did on the first day of camp, before we even go out and hike, is they always gave us the survival training speech. And it went something like this. Okay, now, first of all, step on this piece of tinfoil. Okay, now we have an imprint of your boot. Now we know if we have to track you through the wilds, we know where you are. Oh, all right, all right, you got a whistle around your neck, right? Yeah, we got a whistle around our neck. Now, if you happen to wander off, like to use the shovel and do those things you have to do when you're camping, and the fog rolls in and you get lost or turned around, don't go anywhere. Find a tree and hug it, and then take your whistle out and blow it 3 times, and we'll come find you. Don't try to find us. You won't be able to. Let us find you. You see, we tend to wander. We think, okay, I can, have you been there as a Christian where you wander off and you're thinking, okay, I know where the path is. I can get back over there. I can get back over there, no problem. And you're wandering further and further away. The message here is always that even as a Christian, you can't get back there by yourself. Stand, hug a tree, blow a whistle, and Jesus will come get you. And he will lead you back to that path. That's what trusting him means. And there may be some of you, or you may have somebody very close to you in your life who is really out there. Maybe they've been on this path at one time, or maybe they never have been, and they're out there living a life that is leading to destruction, and you see it. And in a way, maybe they do too. The great news that's held in this book is that it is not the end. It isn't the end. It's not the end if they're out here. Because Jesus just doesn't stay on the path and go, hey, you, come over here. He walks over and he will grab you. Or he will grab that person. And our job as Christians is to share that with the people. To say, you know what, it's not too late to turn around. Jesus will take you by the hand and lead you back to the path. He will do it. It takes a while for them to learn to trust that. But he will take you by the hand. It's not too late to turn around.